Hello, everybody. Good evening. It's already mid of November. Can you believe? So it's it's time to go to your attic, get your Christmas tree, put, put it up, and it's Christmas time. So and now it is a special talk with Roberto Watanabe. Today, Roberto will finish the book, The Mechanism of Mediumship. It was a long journey throughout the year. And uh, at the end, he will talk more about what's the next book. Also, next book will take the entire year. So he will give more details. I don't want to blow up any surprise. But I want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you, Patti Oliveira. It is with us today. Thank you, all those people who are in the FASP channel. So thank you. Good evening. Good evening for us. Good afternoon for you. And good morning if someone is listening us from Australia or Japan. So good morning for them. So let's start. So good evening, Roberto. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine, Esteban. Glad to be here with you all again.
Yes, good. So once more, I want to say thank you, FASP, for this partnership, and we can start. Let me see if I can put it there. Can you can you see your deck?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. So thank you, my friends. I'll be here.
Okay. Uh, aren't you going to do the initial prayer,
Oh, yeah, the
Esteban?
initial prayer. Yeah, you're missing the initial prayer. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's raise up our thoughts towards our mentors of ESP, mentors of Irish Spiritist Federation. Let's thank them for the opportunity to be united, even though we have an ocean apart from us. And let's send good vibrations to our home, to our family, to our friends, to our spiritual friends, our spiritual family. Ask them to keep keep watching us, keep loving us, keep believing on us in order to accomplish our mission. And when we return, we have at least give one step forward throughout our evolution. So be it. Amen. Okay, so ready to start, my friend?
Yes. Let's
Okay.
start. Okay. Uh, First of all, I think we owe an apology to Patty. She was waiting last month for the presentation on Tuesday, but then we had to change it to Thursday because of a professional meeting by Stephen, so didn't have the time to advise. Well, today we are going to finish this book, The Mechanics of Mediumship, part 5, and then we'll see the last three chapters. In this part today, we are going to talk about healing, mediumship healing, then about the prayer, and then the final chapter is about Jesus and mediumship. Okay, so let's start by by the just a second. Let's start by healing mediumship. So the first topic here is about mind and psychosoma. Psychosoma is the same as the perispirit, okay, or spiritual body. And here, the André Luiz, the spiritual author, he explained to us that the psychosomatic envelope, which is the perispirit, is the temple of the soul, and it's composed of a billion of cells engaged in incessant activity. Here is an interesting concept from André Luiz, because he's saying here that as our physical body is composed of cells, billions of cells, the spiritual body is also composed of cells. So that's what he's saying here, right? And then in this psychosomatic envelope or spiritual body, we have the energy centers. We are going to study these energy centers in more detail in the next book. And then we also have in our spiritual body or perispirit, we have organs, according to what André Luiz is saying here, okay? So all the energy centers and the organs are as work departments in the spiritual body, right? That are interdependent, of course, because it's an organism, in spite of their individual autonomy. Energy center, we will learn a little bit more in next month, is some centers that where the energy, the fluidic energy, circulate in our spiritual body. And this is, André Luiz has mentioned that here because it is important to the healing mediumship. Because when we for example, a pass giver give a pass to the person who goes to the spirit center, he's transmitting such fluids to the guy who is there, right? Or girl who is there. So, and these fluids is circulating in the spiritual body through these energy centers. So that's why he's mentioned that here. And all these energy centers and organs obey the mental command of the brain, which maintain their cohesion and balance by means of incessant thought waves. So here, André Luiz is explaining that, is clarifying that all these, the organs of our spiritual body are under the command of the mind, right? The mind we could understand as where we have our thought, right? We emit thought through our mind in our spiritual body and through our brain in the physical body. Of course, let's say the entity who thinks is the spirit, right? And so the brain, so the brain here, in this case also, André Luiz have a concept of a brain in the spiritual body also, right? Because here we are talking only about the spiritual body. And then the spirit thinks, and then such thinking are formulated on its brain, and these thought waves, through such thought waves, the spirit controls all the functions of its body, right? Either the spiritual body or the physical body. So that's what André Luiz is saying here. And so that depends on the direction imprinted on by the spirit or by ourselves, right? By our will, the process of health or sickness are associated or disassociated. Meaning that, for example, if you have a balanced thought, then my tendency is to have a healthy body, right? By the other hand, if I have a disturbed thought, then this disturbed thought will have a negative impact on the harmony of our organ, either the spiritual body or the physical body, right? So um, you see that all these concepts are being presented here because they are closely related to the issue that we are talking now, right? Which is the healing mediumship. So let's then Andrea Luis says that we have in our physical body the physical blood system, right? Which represents the set of energy circulating the spiritual body or psychosoma. Well, what Andrea Luis is saying here is that as we have in our physical body the physical blood system, we have in our spiritual body, let's say, this set of energy who circulated, right, through those energy centers that I mentioned, right? So it is a kind of analogy he's doing here. And he says that the mind captures such energies in the spiritual body, of course, through breathing and from the immeasurable reservoir of the cosmic fluid. So the cosmic fluid, we have studied it before, is the origin of matter, the origin of the fluidic matter, and is the origin also of the vital fluid, right? So he's saying that and the cosmic fluid is all around us, all around all through the universe, right? And then through breathing, we capture such energy, right, from the cosmic fluid, and this circulate in our spiritual body, and this keep your health, right? And it is to this system, Andrea says, that we must turn our attention in the study of any fluidic therapeutic treatment or healing, right? So what he's saying here is that we capture the fluid, the cosmic fluid through breathing, and also from some food, water, air, right? And then such fluid which we capture through breathing and then the other ways, we let's say we utilize in fluidic therapeutic treatment or in mediumship healing, for example, right? When we give a pass, we are transmitting such fluids that we capture through breathing, right? So that's what Andrea Luis is saying here. Now he's going to talk a little bit about the physical body, right? So until now he was talking about the spiritual body. And then he says that the spleen, bone marrow, liver, and ganglia compose the various centers of the blood system. So as we have those energy centers in the spiritual body, we have now all these organs here on the physical body. And they are the centers of the blood system, right? For example, from the bone marrow, we produce the red blood cells in our organic body. So, and they are related, although they are on the physical body, they are related with the spiritual body. So that's what Andrea Luis is saying here, that they are related to the psychosomatic centers. So those energy centers that I mentioned, right? And they produce the large corpuscular collectivities of the red blood cells, lymphocytes, etc., right? All the components of our blood. So what Andrea Luis is explaining, that there is a close relationship between, let's say, the mind, the spirit, through the mind, with the spiritual body, and also with the physical body. They are all interconnected, right? The spirit, perispirit, or spiritual body, and the physical body. And so that actually the mind controls the energy center in our spiritual body, And then through the energy centers, the mind impact on the physical body for good or for bad, right? For health or for infirmity. And thought is the force that facilitates their migration, that we said, right? Or accelerates their mobility for certain effects of the preservation of the or defense. For example, right? We get a bacteria, for example, right? Then the defense system of our physical body starts to acting, right? So, and these are commanded by the mind through thought. So that's what he's saying here. Doesn't mean that we are conscious of that, right? Because our defense system in our body operates automatically, right? But in the base of that is thought. And then André says that if it's possible to hypnotize the human mind, something that we saw some months ago, is even more possible to magnetize the corpuscular entities for self-regulation. So, meaning that as well as a hypnotizer can hypnotize a subject, the mind through the thought can magnetize our own selves in order to work properly. So that's what he's saying here. Or if we are, like I said, right, if we have disturbed thoughts, then such disturbed thoughts don't have the condition to, let's say, to magnetize our own cells properly. And then for that reason, we can end up having a disease, right? Like cancer, for example. So that's what André is saying here. How important the mind, thought through mind, is important to our health. And then André Luis comes here to the healing mediumship, right? Now he's talking about the past-giving mediums, the mediums, the guys or girls who operate in the spirit center, donating their fluids, right, through passes. And then André Luis says that the healing mediumship is of utmost importance as long as it is based on the purest sentiments of the loftiest fraternity. So, what he's saying here is that through healing mediumship, if I am a past-giving medium, I transmit to the guy who go there to the spirit center my own fluids and combine with the fluid of the spirit, the high order spirit. And but this is something almost physical, let's say, right? Although it's not physical, it's fluidic, right? But it's a transmission of the fluids to the person who comes there, who goes there to the spirit center. But very important, the state of the mind of the guy or girl who is giving such a passage, right? Because such pass will be effective as long as it is based on the purest sentiments of fraternity, meaning that I'm here giving a pass to a person, but I'm with my wishing that the person health would return, right? Suppose that he's sick, right? So this sentiment of fraternity, of love, let's say, direct to the person, is very important because it is closely related to the quality of the fluid that I'm transmitting to the person. That's why André Luis is saying here on the last line, right? The spiritual hygiene is very important because will influence the result of the beneficial effect of the past. So meaning that, for example, if I, let's say, drinking alcoholics, for example, or go to give a pass, what I'm going to transmit is not a healthy fluid. So that's why the importance of taking care of not only of our body, but the health of our body, but also the thoughts that we have our mental hygiene also, right? So that's why Andalus says that the past-giving mediums must cultivate worthy habits and healthful activities. Huh? And also it's important that the past-giving medium have some notion of the human constitution, right? From, for example, from the physical body and of the physical body, of the spiritual body, because then he can act more effectively on the past giving process. Right? So that's what Andalus is saying here. And regarding the mechanics of the past, Andalus says that the givers of magnetic capacities are the authentic representatives of spirit magnetizers in procedures that benefit the sick person, right? So what he's saying here is what I already said, right? When I'm there, I am there on the spirit center, giving a pass to the person who is sick, and for example, and goes there to help, to look for helping. The moment I give the pass, I transmit not only my own fluids, right, but also the fluids of the high order spirits, which is much more effective than the mine, right? Because they are more pure. So that's what happened here. So that's why we say that all past giver is a medium, right? Is a medium because he's transmitting not only his fluid, but also the fluids from the high order spirits. And then he says that once a climate of a trust has been established, a subtle connection is created between the person in need who looks for help in the spirit center and the past giver. Right? And through this link of forces flows the assistance from the high realm, from the higher order spirits, according to the merits of one and the other. So that is very important to hear, because I can go to the spirit center looking for help, but whether I'm going to receive such assistance from the higher realms, depending on my merit, right? On my, if I really deserve, let's say, such a help from the higher order spirits. For example, if I go there, I'm totally disturbed. It's very difficult to be helped in such a way, right? But if I go there, I pray for help. I try to stay calm. I listen to the lecture that is done before the pass. So then I will be more receptive to what will be transmitted to me. So that's mainly what Andalus is saying here, right? So you see that at the end of the day, everything involves our mind, right? The mind of the past giver, the mind of the guy who goes there looking for help, right? And the mind of the high order spirit, of course, right? So that's what Andalus is explaining here. And then what is interesting is also is that upon the contact with the energy from the past, Andalus says, the patient by himself begins to emit mental waves, assimilating the vital resources. So meaning that in the second situation that I just mentioned, right, I go looking for help at the spirit center. I'm trying to improve myself spiritually. I pray for such help. I go there in a receptive way of receiving the pass. Then at the moment I am receiving the pass there, I myself start to emit mental waves by myself. Well, it doesn't mean that is consciously done, right? Like I said before. But such mental waves will give that order, let's say, for our organs, for our cells, in order to align themselves in the direction of health, right? So that's what André Luiz is explaining here, meaning that by receiving a pass, it's not only that I'm benefit from the fluids that are transmitted by the pass giver and the spiritual realm, right? But I myself also participate in such a healing process, by by emitting such mental waves, which will help to, let's say, um, harmonize, right, my organs and cells. So that's why André says that centralizing his or her thought waves, of the patient in this case, on the particular cellular areas, he or she regulates and corrects their activity. You see that I myself, by receiving the pass, I'm acting on my own health, right? And the millions of corpuscles and of the physiopsychosomatic organisms, physiopsychosomatic meaning physio from the physical body, psychosomatic, like we said, we have already seen, psychosoma is the spiritual body, right? So it's both together, physical and spiritual body, organism, they tend to instinctively obey. That's why I said that it is not conscious, right? Obey the commands received and tune in to the purpose of the spiritual command that restores them. The spiritual command of myself, right? Who I am, who are receiving the pass there on the spirit center. And once restoration is accomplished, viable organic harmony, as it says, returns, guaranteeing the mind the necessary governance of the body, right? So that's what happened on the mechanic of the past, right? So that's why it is interesting to study, right? Let's say the scientific part of spiritism, because normally for example, I go there to the spirit center. If I am a pass giver, I go there and just apparently give a pass to someone, right? And then the person goes there to looking for help and just receiving the pass from the pass giver, right? So, well, it seems that nothing is happening here, right? But on the contrary, right? All these the process of the mechanic of the past are very complex, as we're seeing here, right? So that's why we are studying here, let's say, the depth of the mechanic of the past, to understand, right, how it works. And then we have this issue here regarding passes and prayer. So passes are applicable without any counterindication, André says, right? And are always valuable in the treatment of a patient of all types, right? So prayer here is very important, not only for the pass giver, before he started his work as a pass giver, but also prayer is also important for the patient, because by praying he become more receptive to receive the pass, right? So that's what André is mentioning here, prayer. And the result, he says, are not always immediate in adult patients that are bound to complex maladjustment in the brain. So it's the situation that I mentioned already, right? If I go there to the spirit center looking for help, but with my mind is very disturbed, it's very difficult to the pass that I receive it to be effective, right? Because I have such a maladjustment in my brain, right? Like André is saying here. That's why it's very important when we go to the spirit center, before receiving the pass, we always listen, right, to a lecture talking about mental reform and about the gospel. So that's very important, because by listening to such a lecture, we start to change our mind, right? From the disturbed, uh, uh, from disturbed condition to a more harmonic condition, right? And that will help myself by myself help myself to solve the problem that I went there to resolve, right? So that's what that we say here. And then he said that in any situation, it's up to the past given medium to use prayer, as I mentioned, right? To establish the thread, right? The connection with the higher realm, to the higher order spirits. So that's why prayer is important. And then we have here a chapter that it talks about prayer, related always with the mediumship issue, right? Which is the main issue of this book, right? Mechanics of mediumship. And then let's start by saying that mediumship existed in all ages, right? Through the times. And then the primitive peoples, totems and manitous, magnificent temples of ancient cultures, we have mediumship in a good way, let's say, right? But then we have also mediumship denigrated among mages in public square, right? So mages are those, let's say, magic guys, right? Who act on public squares and in order to earn money, right, with their mediumship. That is let's say, a wrong way of utilizing a mediumship faculty. Then he, on the list, said that we can also remind the events and prophecies contained in the sacred books, like the Bible, for example, right? Of the religions of the remote times. The Bible, the Vedas from the Hindus, and so on and so forth, right? And at each step of them, of such sacred books, we find references to the manifestation of angels and demons, visions and dreams, spells and exorcism, right? So all such issues here are related to mediumship, right? Because angels are nothing more than the pure spirit, right? Demons are nothing more than the imperfect spirits. Actually, ourselves, right? When we go to the spiritual realm. And so all these are related to mediumship. And then we have here the topic of the conditioning reflex, right? That we have studied already also in this book, right? And Andali says that everywhere we can observe the conditioning reflex facilitate the contact with the spirit plane, right? So we have some facilitators to get in contact with the spirits, and that's why the ancient tribe and the guys on the tribes in the ancient times, they use amulets, for example, right? And also canticles on the religious temples were also utilized, right, in order to get in contact with these high order spirits. And then understand that he says that like attracts like. There are the sorcerers who use mandrakes to send harmful vibrations towards a certain person, right, causing it to assimilate inferior mental courage. So this is a bad use, right, of a mediumship. But by the other hand, the morally upright clergy, that it says, comfort despairing souls, preparing them to receive assistance from the higher spirit. So in this case, is a good use of the mediumship faculty. Okay, and all these they use some conditioning reflex, let's say, mechanism to get in contact with the spiritual plane. Right? Either a canticle, an amulet, a prayer, for example. Right? All those are conditioning reflex mechanism. And the importance of a prayer, that he says, is that in all moments of the soul, the conditioning reflex is at the base of the mind, and prayers there, right? So that's why he says that we need the vigilance over our tendencies, because only morally upright conduct supports moral upright thought. So these are all the process of conditional reflex also, right? And with morally upright thought, prayer is the loftiest touch of induction for putting ourselves in communion with the higher realm. So here, Andalus is mentioning prayer as a mechanism of conditional reflex that get us in contact with the higher realm. But for that to happen, is not enough just to say a prayer, right? Without any sentiment, without any concentration. And saying a prayer, but doing lots of wrong things when we are not there saying the prayer, right? So that's why he connected the importance of the saying a prayer, but also the upright, connected with the upright thought, and supported by the upright conduct, right? Because sometimes we have lots of good thoughts in our mind, but our conduct is the opposite, right? So you see that we must be harmonized integrally, right? So in our mind, in our conduct, right, in our action, in our thought, in our talk, right? So at the end of the day is what Andalus is saying here. If we are in that condition, then our prayer will be more effective, right? So that's what he's saying here. And equilibrium prayer, he's saying here, right? So the incarnate intelligence, which are ourselves, we have many means, he says, to preserve our physical body. So we can, if we are going to, we intend to preserve our physical body, we can look for the advice of doctors, nutritionists to know what kind of food would be better for our health. We can look for advice from teachers and various guides, right? But we can also make use of a prayer. So that's what Andalus is saying here. So what he's saying, that prayer can have or have an effect in our physical body health. So that's what he's saying here, because through prayer we assimilate the influx of the renewing energies, right? The fluids from the highest life. So this is very interesting, because I mentioned a lot that a person can go to this. A person, for example, is sick, and then he goes to the spirit center looking to receive a pass, right, to spiritual assistance, which involves the pass. But the person can do that, but the person can also, by himself in his home, look for such help through prayer, right? Because the same way that the high order spirits are there on the spirit center, transmitting their pure fluids to the guy who went there. The same person can also receive such pure fluids in his home, for example, anywhere, right? Well, whenever he resorts to prayer. So this is what Andalus is saying here, right? So how important is prayer in our life? Then now he's talking about prayer and renewal. So he said that people frequently find themselves confronted by subaltern vibrations that drives them to exhaustion and irritation. For example, if I am now a victim of an obsession, then I am confronted with such subaltern vibration coming from the obsessor, right? The low order spirit which is trying to harm me. So that drives me to irritation, exhaustion, and I don't know the reason, right? So that's why Louis says, right? These vibrations are derived from either unhealthy waves coming from discarnates, which is the obsessor that I mentioned in distress, who share their psychic state, right? Or from disturbed waves coming from the imbalanced incarnate friends and family members with whom we live, right? So meaning that such unhealthy vibration can come from the low order spirits, or can come from my friends and family members, right? If they are not harmonized in their mind, right? So all of this affects me, and then how can we resolve that? Through prayer, and we're saying here, right? So through prayer, their thoughts are raised to the sublime planes. There is we, right? So through prayer, our thoughts are raised to the sublime planes, whence we gather in transforming ideas from the friendly spirits, from the high order spirit, right? So you see how Andrade is stressing here, right? How important the prayer is in our lives, right? Regarding our the harmony of not only of our mind, but also of our spiritual body and our physical body. So, and at first we don't see any connection, right? But this is what happened really. So that's what he's explaining here. Mediumship in prayer. So mediumship is also has been always associated with the prayer as an instrument of the illumination for the world. Right? So that is explained here. So then he said that among the Egyptians, Hindus, Chinese, Persians, and Greeks, prayer was the agent to reflect the heaven into the human soul, right? Because through prayer, we connect to the high realms, right? To the heaven. And then while praying, Moses received the commandment, the 10 commandments, right? There on the Mount Sinai. That has served as foundation of justice down through the centuries until now, right? And likewise, Christ revealed the condition he reflects, which is prayer, capable of establishing the affinity between creature and creator, right? Christ also utilized prayer, right, as a way to get in contact with God, right? So that's what Adel is saying here. Then let's finish this book with this last chapter, which talks about Jesus and mediumship, right? There is a question in the spirits, right? Was Jesus a medium or not, right? So basically what we says that Allan Kardec, right, says, the spiritist the codifier, he says that Jesus has it's his own power, right? His own spiritual power. So he wouldn't need to receive the help from high order spirit, because he himself was a very high order spirit. Actually, he was a pure spirit, right? So if we would say that he would be a medium, he would be only a God's medium, right? A medium of God. So that's what we say in Spiritism. And then he says here, right? In any study of a mediumship, we cannot forget that in Jesus, it assumes all the characteristics of divine loftiness, right? Because if Jesus was a medium, he would be a medium of the high order, of a maximum order, right? But although he acted by himself, right? What I just said, in virtue of his own personal power. So that's why, like I said, some call him God's medium. And the transmitting the mental waves from the higher realms whence he came, he walked there amongst we men and women, awakening our energies to the greater light, right? So that's what he did through his gospel. And here is mediumship is also, right? Because he's bringing by himself from the high realms his teaching, right, to us. For Jesus to incarnate here on earth, there were some mediums who came before him, right, to prepare his coming. So that Andalus is talking here about those preparatory mediums. Right? And then he said that the Gospel tells us about a small group of wonderful mediums in contact with the heavenly emissary, right? And then that was the case of Zacharias and Elizabeth, which were the parents of John Baptist, right? Which was the precursor of Jesus. And also, as preparatory mediums, we had Mary and Joseph of Galilee, right? Who was the parents of Jesus. And due to their blameless conduct, right, you see that all those spirits here, Mary, Joseph, Zacharias, John the Baptist, they were high order spirits, right? So they come here with the mission of preparing the coming of Jesus, right? So due to their blameless conduct, we then Andali said, right, we find an energy circuit to which the mental wave of Christ adjusts itself, right, to expand afterward in the renewal of the world. So these preparatory mediums received Jesus, and then preparing him to later he could spread his gospel message, right? So you see how important they are, this kind of medium here. In that sense, we could say that our parents, our mother, our father, for example, are a kind of a preparatory medium for ourselves, right? Preparing we to let's say to do well in this present incarnation. And regarding the physical effect, right? Jesus' physical effects. So we can find him, and it says, in full levitation, walking on water. There is a situation where Jesus walked on water, and it's a kind of a physical effect phenomenon, right? We have also the event of materialization, when in front of his disciple, Peter and John, and Peter and John, he talks to two discarnate men, who was Elijah, the prophet Elijah and Moses, right? Also, when he was in front of a crowd in Jerusalem, everybody heard there a direct voice phenomenon, so a kind of a voice that comes from the air, right? So this is a kind of a physical effect phenomenon. We have studied that on the in the realms of a mediumship book, which was the previous book from this mechanical mediumship. And then such a voice said, "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again," referring to Jesus, right? And then we said that in each of these instances, we can see Jesus controlling matter with the collaboration of the spirit servants who were assisting him in his ministry of light, right? So these are some examples of Jesus' physical effects phenomena. Regarding intellectual facts, we can there is mention here when he was on his way to Jerusalem, when he foretells the bitter events that will culminate on his death on the cross, right? So he anticipated what were going to happen with him. He also foresees Simon Peter surrounded by low order entities or spirits, and warns him of the danger it represents to the apostles' weakness. So, well, This was before Simon Peter denying Jesus 3 times, right? And also in his final instructions to his friends, to the apostles, he demonstrated his knowledge of Judas' troubled conscience, right? He knew in anticipation that Judas was going to betray him, right? So these are all kind of intellectual effects phenomena. Healing mediumship. Jesus made lots of healing, right? So Andali said here that the paralytics extended their withered limbs and received help from Jesus. Blind regained their sight. Lepers were cleansed, and the mentally alienated recovered their sanity, right, through Jesus' action, through Jesus' healing action. And what's important, and at least reminds here, is that he invited everyone to make use of their own energy, right? The kind of the example of the woman with the flow of blood, for example, right? So Jesus says to her, right, after she's cured from her fluid of blood by touching the Jesus' clothes, right? He says to her daughter, "Take heart, your faith has healed you." Right? So that's what Andalvis has explained already, right? When I said that by receiving a pass, I myself heal myself, and help to heal myself, right? Act to heal myself. And he also urges healed sufferers to live a more upright life. So that situation that I mentioned also, right? If I have a problem of a sickness, for example, a disease, because of my disturbed mind, if I don't change my mind to a more harmonic condition, then the sickness will come again and again, right? So that's why he urges here the healed sufferer to live a more upright life, you know. And in some cases, in one case that he healed a blind person, right? He said, right, sin no more, so that something worse does not happen to you, right? So change your mind, right, to a more harmonic condition. And the gospel from Jesus, right? So in Jesus and his early continuers, who were the apostles, and that we says here, mediumship is pure and spontaneous as it should be. So not only Jesus, but all the apostles had mediumship faculties also, right? So in them, the apostles, the various expressions of mediumship were at the service of the cosmic religion of love and wisdom, which was brought by Jesus, right? And accordingly, and he says, the gospel is a code of moral principles of the universe, adaptable to all nations, races, and individuals. So it's a universal, right? So a code of moral principle. And above all, and he says, it represents a code of conduct for the consciousness ascent to immortality, meaning that through the gospel as a code of conduct, if we apply the gospel to ourselves, we are paving our way to immortality, right? Or to perfection, as we say, or to reach God, right? So in all this, we have the mediumship process going on, right? So that's what we have in this book, Mechanics of Mediumship. Then we finish here this book, and then next month, on the 9th of December, I will going to present an introduction of the next book, right? Which is from this spiritual author also, André Luiz. And the title of the book is Evolution in Two Worlds. So we are going to see how the spirit evolved, right? In two worlds, meaning the physical world and the spiritual world. And how important then the central issue in such a book is the spiritual body, right? The perispirit, because the perispirit is with us here as incarnate and also there in the spiritual realm as a discarnated person, right? So that's why spiritual body is very important, is what we are going to study in the next book. And seeing the introduction in December, and then next year we start the part by part, right, of the book. So that's all I have to today. Thank you to be with me today. So, Esteban, well, I don't know if Esteban is. Ah,
I'm here. I talk here. Aqui.
okay, okay, all right.
Muito bem. Very good. Very good.
Mm.
So with this, we finish one more
One
book.
more, one more book, yeah. The second.
So next month we will have our meeting on the 9th of December. Correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So next week next month is 9th of September, which is
Right.
with not December, not September.
December, yeah.
Yeah, which is good. Okay.
Okay.
So um, we don't have any questions so far.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So
Let's do it.
would you mind?
Yeah, final prayer. Okay. Okay, so let's finish our meeting today, and then we want to thank you, all the spiritual benefactors, by supporting us through this presentation today. We also would like to raise our thoughts to Jesus, and we finalized this book mentioning him, how important he was, and he is, and he will be in our ascent to immortality, as André Luis says, right? And finally, we would like also to thank God for this opportunity of this incarnation, where we can understand a little bit more about the meaning of our life, and or understand all these complex issues regarding our life as immortal spirits. So be it.
Amen.
Okay.
So once more, thank you, my friend, for your lightning words, for
All right. Thank
everything,
you.
and I'll see you in December.
December the 9th. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all for watching us. Stay tuned and be safe. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.